Welcome to the news. We take a look at stories making headlines. Finance Minister Margaret Mwanakatwe says government has this year so far paid over $800 million in debt service. Catholic Parish St. Ignatius in Lusaka has offered itself to reconcile President Edgar Lungu and opposition UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema. Now the news in detail. Minister of Finance Margaret Mwanakatwe says government has this year so far paid over $800 million in debt service. Mrs. Mwanakatwe says government has also not registered any default in debt payment. She says had this not been so, investors in Zambia's Eurobonds and other financing facilities would have activated cross-default provisions in accordance with international debt marketing regulations. Mrs. Mwanakatwe says government's thoughts resonate with the thoughts of Zambians' development partners that debt vulnerabilities pose the risk of reversing the benefits of earlier debt relief initiatives. She states that this is why within the current session of Parliament, she will present specific details on the implementation of austerity measures related to debt. Mrs. Mwanakatwe disclosed this in her speech on the 2018 annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Group held in Bali, Indonesia. And Mrs. Mwanakatwe has described the annual meetings as having been successful, and she notes that the successful bilateral meetings her delegation held in Bali are signals that Zambia's economic reform policies and programs are of international market standard. Mrs. Mwanakatwe is optimistic that these policies and programs will continue to attract quality stakeholders' interest both locally and in the international community. Her delegation to Bali included Minister of National Planning Alexander Chiteme, Secretary to the Treasury Fredson Yamba, and Deputy Secretary to the Cabinet Christopher Mvunga. Others are Bank of Zambia BOZ Governor Denny Kelelia, Ministry of National Planning Permanent Secretary Chola Chabala, and Ministry of Finance Permanent Secretary Mokoli Chikuba. St. Ignatius Catholic Parish in Lusaka has offered itself to reconcile President Edgar Lungu and opposition UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema. St. Ignatius Parish Priest Charles Chilinda says his parish is ready to facilitate talks between President Edgar Lungu and Mr. Hichilema. Father Chilinda says this is especially that the national dialogue has taken long to take place. He has since urged President Edgar Lungu and Mr. Hichilema to take his parish offer as an official invitation. Father Chilinda, who spoke in Bemba, has expressed hope that reconciliation can take place between the two leaders, particularly at the time the Archbishop Alec Banda is still available. He said this during the memorial church service of late President Michael Sata that was held at St. Ignatius Parish in Lusaka.
Vaisante va mashuya mon shinde pekesha kanshi ya mashumwa kwera ndesfila munamunganda palesa mu basata balesa shikeshingi ngatrefa twale ligasi ya bopantanshi na milombo bakateka kutira tampene chende ino na banen ba kainde ishama mukese kunokina mukese velishanya kusai fight Japan pana pamoja tukokola kabini kudinef kansa thinking kanshi any official invitation bakateka nongenda kwa St. Ignatius magishwa kwino ero kutukwa mleta chapa mtu ana kuntashi ama afya yesu abantu kabili bantu ba appreciate kanshi nalombo kutila kushikutwala kwa mkapantanshi na shikofu wesu wako alumini wamushi kuti aisa tumkurula kwino ayamadiashi.
And Archbishop Banda said late President Michael Sata should be remembered as a man of action and a man of the people who desired unity of the country regardless of tribe, region or political divide. He has urged Zambians to remain resolved and uphold the One Zambia, One Nation motto.
Remember the President, His Excellency Mr. Michael Chilufya Sata, as a man of action, a man of people, and his thoughts carefully seasoned. Remember him as a man of action, a man of the people, and indeed his thoughts carefully seasoned. He desired by our sisters in Christ to lead our nation as a God-fearing man. He would even say, yeah, I have to lead this country through the 10 biblical commandments. Indeed, this has come to pass. We have now the declaration of Day of National Prayer. He desired, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, to give a constitution that will stand the test of time. A constitution which is based on agreed principles. Principles of justice. A constitution that is based on agreed just procedures, and a constitution which is just.
Meanwhile, President Edgar Lungu, who attended the Memorial Church service, has called on Patriotic Front members to respect and uphold the legacy of late President Michael Chilufya Sata. President Lungu is urging party members to practice forgiveness, embrace each other, and living in unity. He has recalled that late President Michael Sata was a man with qualities of forgiveness, tolerance, and of embracing everyone. President Lungu states that the best way to remember late President Michael Sata is by doing all the positive things he used to do.
Jewish believe try in parliament. When he got us together as a team, we never talked about tribe. He never talked about tribe because for him, humanity was one. We were all Zambian. And his concern for the poverty of Zambian people was national. He kept telling me there's a lot of poverty in Western Province, there's a lot of poverty in Wapula Province. You know the statistics. At the time when people did not even watch for us in Western Province, he said, let's bring up Western Province and Wapula Province, the same level where all other provinces are. And I think it will be demeaning for all of you who belong to this club, but don't try to carry negative traits which you never subscribe to. So let us believe in the oneness of love, the love of Christ. And as we go to the future, we want to do justice to this man by believing in Jesus Christ, believing in the power of God through loving one another. Forgiveness, tolerance, and indeed resilience were his qualities. 2011, when he formed the government, he picked people from the MMD, brought them into government. He picked people from the PND, brought them into government. If I do that, I'm condemned. I'm called names. Where is the discipleship, the fellowship, the following of Mr. Michael? A lot of people want to pretend they are Michael, but what they do, what they say, falls far too short of what the man stood for. Let us respect his life.
President Edgar Lungu later laid senior government officials, PF senior party members, and supporters to lay wreaths at the mausoleum for late President Michael Sata at Embassy Park. Republican President Edgar Chagwa Lungu has been challenged to demonstrate what he truly believes in late President Michael Satta's vision for Zambia by putting to an end the theft of public resources. National Democratic Congress NDC consultant Chimba Kambwili has also urged President Lungu to show that his government truly cares about the poor. Mr. Kambwili, who is also one member of parliament, wants President Lungu and his government to realize that leadership is about uplifting the lives of the people. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Kambwili says this means that President Lungu needs to make the necessary radical changes as he reflects on the leadership late President Michael Satta left. Mr. Kambwili has recalled that the late Republican president demonstrated that he was more interested in ensuring that every Zambian can afford 3 meals a day than he was interested in enriching himself.
Radical change. They should stop stealing. They should care about the poor. They should not pretend that they are developing this country and yet they are getting commissions from the projects that they are doing. They should think for the poor, because leadership is about uplifting the living standards of the people, not uplifting the living standards of the leaders. What we are seeing today are selfish leaders, but time for reckoning will come. Let them reflect as they remember our great leader who never thought of uplifting his own living standard before the people of Zambia can have 3 meals a day. Radical change.
And Mr. Kambwili has justified why he did not attend this year's memorial service for late President Michael Satta that was held in Lusaka. He says besides having not been formally invited to attend the memorial service, he also feared a repeat of the harassment he went through last year when ruling PF cadres became violent. Mr. Kambwili states that the NDC, however, have its own wreath-laying event on the grave of the late Republican president on Monday.
And I hope as President Edgar Lungu today went to the memorial, which memorial they made it very secret. They didn't announce to the country. Me, I was not even aware that there was going to be a memorial for the late President Michael Satta. But even if I was aware, it would have been very difficult for me to attend, because you remember what happened at the memorial last year, where cadres became violent and no action was taken against any cadres, despite the fact that the matter was reported to the police. So we are going to have our own event tomorrow, where we are going to lay the wreaths on the grave of the late President Michael Satta, obviously after coming from court.
Late Republican President Michael Satta's son, Mlenga Satta, has reminded those in high offices not to forget about the people who have put them in those offices. Mr. Satta, who is also former State House Deputy Minister, says high office bearers need to remember that they are put in those offices to serve the people and not for their own personal gains. Mr. Satta says one of his late father's virtues was to put the interest of the people first, and that this is what people in high offices should emulate. He has also encouraged the leaders to work hard, persevere, and practice humility. And Mr. Satta says that the family is now united and working together 4 years after the death of his father. He has also encouraged Zambians to persevere and believe that the various challenges affecting the country will pass in due time.
I would say what is most important to us now is perseverance, hard work, humility. You know, I think a lot of times people go into these offices and forget that they were put there by people, ordinary people, voiceless people. So we need to remember who we're serving when we go into these offices. It shouldn't be service about self, it should be service for the people that elected us. And again, I would say too, we're going through tough times economically. Perseverance, it shall get better in the future. So those are what I would like to say. We could spend the whole day talking about legacy and lessons, but I would say for me, the two that struck me the most, that resonated the most with me, were the perseverance, hard work, humility, and love of people. I would say
Former Prime Minister under the UNIP government, Malimba Masheke, has expressed hope that national dialogue will achieve the intended outcome regardless of who is going to be in charge of handling it. General Masheke is of the view that it should not matter whether it is the Church Mother Body or the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue, ZCID, that chairs the national dialogue process. In an interview with QTV News, General Masheke, who is also a retired Zambia Army commander, states that what is important is to exercise what is in the interest of the country. General Masheke notes that given how the Church Mother Bodies and the ZCID are, however, divided, what Zambians should do is to simply follow the dialogue processes both will separately handle. He has since encouraged the people in the country to take interest in what the Church Mother Bodies will say after their meeting on Tuesday.
I think that everybody is worried about what will come from these groups. What it is that these groups want guidance, and therefore, in my view, we should be able to be steadfast and be able to follow each one of them clearly. And I'm sure the church wants to sound themselves out. And then I think we should be able to listen to them and be able to comment when they have done so.
Housing and Infrastructure Development Minister Ronald Chitotela has disclosed that over 120 million kwacha has been released to pay to contractors across the country. Mr. Chitotela told journalists in Lusaka that the money was released last week to pay local contractors across the country. Mr. Chitotela says that this shows how his ministry is paying attention to the local contractors. He states that the economy can only grow if it is fully owned by locals, adding that locals can equally only own the economy if they are paid their dues and empowered. Mr. Chitotela says he is also pleased to note that local contractors are improving in delivery of services.
We are moved and we are on course. As you may be aware, last time we paid about 1.2 billion. Just last week we were paying another 120 million kwacha. We are paying more attention to the local contractors because we want to make sure that we pay the local contractors, because once we pay the local contractors, money is staying in Zambia. And I think in the next 2-3 weeks we'll also be releasing some more amount of money to the local contractors, and that may also cater for the international contractors that are involved in various infrastructure. Yes, I can confirm that last week we released 120 million kwacha to the local contractors across the country.
Home Affairs Minister Stephen Kampyongo says if it is government's desire to ensure that youths in the country channel their energies into productive activities as opposed to criminality. Mr. Kampyongo says government is thus committed to creating space for youth employment and putting in place measures that will help youths earn a living and use their time productively. The Home Affairs Minister, who is also Patriotic Front and National Youth Chairman, says government is concerned with the high levels of youths engaging in criminal activities in the country. He has warned youths engaging in criminal activities that the law will take its course once they are found wanting.
First and foremost, we are equally concerned. It's all about trying to create space for the youth to, expose their potential. And we need to harness that potential. Because if we don't harness it, it will end up, exploding in a negative way. And that's what you're saying. And so when you see us going with the Copper Belt to make sure that ventures that are meant to benefit the youths, we are exactly trying to cure this social problem so that our youths can channel their energy in productive activities as opposed to criminality. On the other hand, those that don't want to come on board as in making sure that they become productive, they want to go bad ways, they certainly, just as you saw to those young ones we had on the Copper Belt, who were in gang groups, have been dealt with within the confinements of the law. But our desire is to see as many youths, and I think government is looking at various ways in which we can harness the potential of the youths
there are a number of interventions that I think my counterpart at the Ministry of Youth and Sports will be spelling out in order to make sure that we take stock of our youths, because they're the future generation. First and foremost,
we get to Eastern Province where the opposition UPND Mkomba Ward Councillor in Lundazi District, Maxon Mwale, has resigned and joined the ruling party. Mr. Mwale says he has opted to resign because he is disappointed with the leadership in the UPND. Speaking when he officially announced his resignation at Nyondo Primary School, Mr. Mwale disclosed that from the time he was elected as a councillor, he has not been visited by the party leadership. Mr. Mwale states that this is what has made him feel so segregated. And Mr. Mwale has refuted claims that UPND members in Lundazi have been bought by the ruling PF. Mr. Mwale says his leadership style in particular is to serve the people and not to look at money in his discharge of duty. He says he has, however, realized that he can only deliver development as a councillor when he has the support from his political party, which he claims he did not get from the UPND. Moving on in our news, Minister of Health Chitalu Chilufya has announced that government will next month commence the construction of a modern state-of-the-art medical stores hub in Kabompo, Northwestern Province. Dr. Chitalu says that this will be at the cost of $2 million. Speaking after touring a rented temporary medical hub in Kabompo, Dr. Chilufya said that the government has resolved to have a zero stock out of drugs in the country. Dr. Chilufya says that this is why government is decentralizing the medical stores across the country to address the inefficiencies related to the availability and the provision of drugs. He states that government is decentralizing the medical stores in two phases, which involve renting a temporary structure where permanent hubs are being constructed. Northern Province Minister Brian Mundubile says that challenges of accommodation in his province are an opportunity for investment. Mr. Mundubile says accommodation is in fact one of the facilities that are missing to fully actualize the tourism potential of the province. He has told QTV News that his administration is, however, pleased that one of the local companies, Mikalile, is investing 12 million kwacha to constructing a hotel in Kasama. Mr. Mundubile says his administration is inviting other investors to do the same in lodging conference facilities at Kasaba Bay. He says his administration wants tourists to be spending more time when they visit such areas as opposed to flying back on the same day as they visit due to lack of accommodation.
I want to say this again, that the challenges in accommodation actually is an opportunity for investment, because clearly these are some of the facilities that we are missing to fully actualize the tourism potential in the province. We have one of our local investors in the name of Mikalile, who's coming to put up a hotel, in Kasama, a 12 million investment at that. And we're inviting more investments in hotels and conference facilities at Kasaba Bay, so that we don't have to fly back our tourists once they've been there. They can spend a couple of days in the province.
And finally, in our news, the Rural Electrification Authority, REA, has successfully switched on the Milenge Grid Extension Project, which involved the construction of a 165 kilometers of 33 kilovolt overhead power lines. The grid extension project is at a total cost of 22.6 million kwacha. REA Chief Executive Officer Geoffrey Msonda says that the project was undertaken to help accelerate development in Milenge District, which was established in 1997. Zanis reports that Mr. Msonda explains that the Milenge Grid Extension Project took about 5 years to be completed due to limited funds. He was speaking when he officially commissioned the project in Milenge District before handing it over to ZESCO. And Mr. Msonda states that the implementation of the Milenge Grid Extension Project was phased into 4 lots before successfully completed. He states that the works on all the 4 phases of the project are 100% completed, adding that the entire project has so far directly benefited a population of 10,448 people. The project involves the connection of Milenge District Education Board Office, DEBS, Milenge Boarding Secondary School, and the newly constructed Milenge District Hospital, among many public institutions. That's all we had for you in our news, but before we go, a recap of stories making headlines. Minister of Finance Margaret Mwanakatwe says government has this year so far paid over $800 million in debt service. And Catholic Parish St. Ignatius in Lusaka has offered itself to reconcile President Ed Kalungu and opposition UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema. Thank you so much for your time. Have yourselves a very